mindset because it's like we think it's gonna be on demand.
Right.
Yeah. And it's like
This is speaking from experience.
just reminiscing.
Why are you looking at me like that? I'll tell you.
But there's more to it than just that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like you still have to go through life
Right.
with one another, and because we have like this overinflated view of sex, which it is wonderful. It's like we put that at such a premium for that's the reason why I'm getting married. You know,
Yeah.
now that I can do this, and once you get married and you actually see what it's all about, you're like, dang, you know, there's more to it.
Yeah.
I still have to like live with this person.
Yeah.
I still have to wake up to them, and like there's more to it than just that. So no, like just I'm glad that you're able just to speak on that and just realize that it's a journey just going through that, and it's not easy. It's difficult because it's that fine tension of the goal is marriage, but
Right.
we're not married.
Right.
But what should we be doing? What
Right.
shouldn't we be doing? And as adults, where it's like, especially if there is no one there, it's so easy to fall into those temptations and things like that. But for Mr. Single Man over here,
Yes,
we've been
sir.
trying to hook him up, man.
Yeah,
Anybody knows?
Yeah.
What's your Instagram?
JT.
He's searching for him. I know you've had numerous people try to hook you up.
Yeah, man.
What are some of the challenges as someone who is seeking?
One, staying pure. As you said, that's a real big thing. I think as a Christian who wants to be a role model, who wants to be able to tell people that God is able to keep you, you want to make sure that you're putting yourself in situations where that can happen. And I think, like you were saying, you having that accountability, having family, having friends, also understanding the consequences of your actions. It's a struggle. It's hard for me, and that's why I kind of confide in brothers. And even I go to the sisters to kind of like keep me in line, help me understand things. Because from a male perspective, we see things one way, but you also need that woman counsel as well. You need to have those people to whom you can lean and say, am I crazy for thinking this way? Because sometimes when I'm dating someone or I'm pursuing somebody, I'll go to my sister or my mother, or I'll talk to my friends who are women, and I'm like, am I thinking too much about this?
Yeah.
Am I overthinking the situation? And sometimes they'll check me, they'll correct me on it. A lot of my sisters be like, bro, what is wrong with you? Bro, you 29 now, you love the Lord, why you still single? Something wrong with you. And, for me, as I'm dating, I think one of the biggest things, like I said, going back and talking about my parents, is because I've seen some of the worst, it's like, you need to be mature. You need to be able to handle me and my weaknesses. So a lot of times people go in looking at all the good stuff about it is like, oh, he's a godly person. Like, yes, I am. Yes, I love the Lord. But you also need to know I'm stubborn. You also need to know that I struggle with these things so that when you get into this relationship with me, you're not looking at it as saying, okay, everything is just going to be flowers, roses from this point on. So I think one of the things that's kind of hard as I'm dating is having that maturity for somebody who is not going to quit when you're going through those tough times, when you're having that miscommunication. Again, of course nobody wants to say this, but when you're looking at somebody else and you ain't supposed to be looking at somebody else, and all those things that, again, that sometimes you don't want to talk about, that's uncomfortable. You need to have those conversations so that people know, like, you don't want just to be showing up once you say I do, and then you're like, you ain't had none of this going on beforehand. Right. What's going on? So it's like, we need to talk about that. And one of the things is, I think society is a big issue for me, is people want you to have data a lot. And I think that's a problem. I think too much is that we want so much experience of how many women have you talked to. It shouldn't be that way. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, I want to be able to look somebody in their eyes and tell them how I feel, and want them to know you're the only person I said that to. That's how we should be. Like, and it kind of hurts when you could say you love somebody over and over again, because it's like, here it is, you done told other women that before. Yeah. Do you really mean that? Does it really have value because you said that time and time again? So, for me, like, one of the things I do want to point out is, I think a lot of times people are afraid of rejection. I would say in college, I was that cautious kind of guy. I wanted to make sure that a woman liked me before I asked her out, you know. And I'll never forget. I was in college, and this one young lady, she met my parents, and I was like, oh, I know she liked me. She, you know, she rode with my parents. My parents came down. She talking to them, and so we having good conversations. And so, you know, I go up to her, and I was like, hey, you know, I text her. I say, come outside. I want to talk to you. And I was like, you know, I want to date you. I want to take you out. And her reaction wasn't what I expected. She said yes, but she was like shocked. And, you know, later on, I kind of left. I told her, like, hey, you know, if you don't want to be in a relationship, then you don't have to. She was like, no. But it hurt my feelings because I was like, dang, she done met my family. You know, I thought we was good. And that, to me, that needed to happen for me to get over myself, in a sense. It's like, the thing goes, she went to the same church as I did. Oh, so I was like, dang, I got to act on like everything is okay. So I'm going to church, and I was able to, and then she was sitting by her friends. So I knew her friends knew. So it was like, dang, I got to go and see the friends. So I was able to still at Godly, and she actually admired that about me. It actually created like a friendship to where she opened up more communication because she thought that I was just going to act a certain way, and that wasn't the case. And I think I just said that to say we need to get over ourselves in the sense of not everybody's going to be attracted to you, and you want somebody to say no in the beginning because you don't want nobody to take advantage of you. I hear a lot of women saying, oh, I just want to go out to eat, so I'm going to say yes. No, don't say yes to me if you don't like me. Right, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I work hard for that money. I ain't trying to give it away. Like, no. You know, and I think a lot of times we need to have that conversation is just because somebody's in the church or somebody is a Christian, that don't mean you're going to be attracted to them. Because I'm not attracted to all my sisters. And I think there's conversations where I've had where there's people whom were attracted to me, but I just didn't see them that way. And I won't date somebody unless I'm operating with a view towards marriage. I'm not saying that I'm going to know everything about you, but there might be some context to which I can. Sometimes we might be groups, like I said, y'all be trying to hook me up with people. It's like, I might be able to ask questions about that person, where sometimes I'm not. So, you know, to me, it's like it's a different situation to given on what's going on at that time. But to me, I prefer to do my research. You know, what do your friends say about you? What are you posting on Facebook? Do you really love God? Like I said, I'm a believer. I don't want you to be unashamed. I don't want you to be ashamed of your faith. So how is that being professed? Do people know that you are a believer? Because again, because I've seen the bad, and I know that the only way that's going to help you to maintain, to be strong, is for you to understand that Christ is the head, and that He's the standard, and that you have to remind me of that. And if you can't do that, then you're going to encourage the boy in me and not the man in me.
And like I said, I think because you guys are in two different walks in your life, you can offer two different perspectives, and I can imagine just the pressure that you receive, just like,
oh, let me tell you about that. So, like I said earlier, I've come from a generation of family who has had children at teenage years. So in my, you know, they say women had this biological clock. Actually, it was in my head, because again, my family had generation after generation having children at a young age. So here it is, my parents like, don't do that, do it in the right context. But yet, because I was so used to that, be honest, I'm 29, I'm like, I should have 3 kids by now. So I think that way because of the fact of where I came from. I get it from my mother. I get it from my grandparents. I get it from people because they're like, okay, Jeremy, like, you know, you got your stuff together. You know what I mean? So I do get it a lot. And one of the things I tell people is when everybody asks me why I'm still single, I'm like, I ain't got a good answer for you. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm not pursuing. It's not like I'm not doing certain things. It's just that certain situations have not worked out. And one of the things I was sharing with you was, I think sometimes, again, let's just say I am attracted to somebody and I'm pursuing them. There are times when you can be going in 2 different directions. One time, a young lady was like, hey, you know, I have a business. I'm staying here in Georgia. This is where I'm going to be. I'm like, well, I'm about to go move to North Carolina. You know, and it's like, if you feel like this is where God has called you to and this is where I got to call me, then, you know, we going in 2 different directions. And I think sometimes people need to understand that you might not agree on everything. There are some points where I've had some sisters who, and I haven't done this, which has encouraged me. They asked me my views on certain things. Like they wanted to know if I was a Christian. They quizzed me. You know, what's your view on salvation? What's your view on marriage and music and all these type of things to help to get an understanding of where I am, so that they know if we could walk together. They said, how can two walk together unless they agree? And so they wanted to make sure that I agreed with them on certain things. And like I said, I had a situation where I tried to see this young lady. I walked up to the father. I was like, hey, I want to date your daughter. He's like, hey, you have my blessing. Me and this young lady, we started talking, and she basically had some different doctrinal views that she felt that we couldn't reconcile on. And for me, I didn't feel like it was a deal breaker, but I respected that decision. I understood where she was coming from, and we left it at that. We on good terms. And I think a lot of times, too, you think when something doesn't work out, you got to bash somebody, or I ain't talking to you no more. I can't see you. I'm going to delete you. I'm going to unfriend you on Facebook, Instagram, you know. It's like, no. I want to be able to have that relationship with women to where they can say, you know, he's a godly man. And that's something that I'm trying to live out. It's like, if that person who I'm dating wants to go back and talk to all the women I have had in my life, what would they say about me? And that's what I think about. I try to see, what am I leaving that person with? Even if we disagree, even if it doesn't work out, can we leave on mature terms?
And like I said, just thank you for your heart and sharing and just being open and vulnerable, because I know this is a lot of stuff we just want to keep to ourselves and not actually discuss and have conversations about. So both of y'all, just thank y'all just for being open and honest and just about sharing the things that you face that are challenging in your respective relationships. Because I know for me, just desiring a relationship, and not that I always thought it would be okay, but it's like, they're always going to have challenges. It's not, once I get married, everything is going to be gravy. Because I think we have that false view, like, I'm in this relationship, once I get married, everything's going to be good. No, you're going to find a whole new set of challenges that you didn't even realize was there to begin with. So I guess as the married guy on the panel, there's definitely challenges where it truly tests, you know, do I truly love the Lord? You know, is this truly, you know, I remember when I was at my wedding, first time, because I say it all the time that vision is pretty much the first time I've ever like preached in front of people. So I'm like, what the heck is going on? But that's not entirely true. At my wedding, I preached on Isaiah 6. It was only for like 9 minutes, but I was in front of an audience espousing on the text. And I remember one thing that I had said that always stuck to me. I said, marriage is not about your happiness, it's about your holiness. Now, I'm not saying that you're never going to be happy in a relationship or a marriage, but if you're dependent on that happiness to make the marriage go, then it's not going to work, because you're not always going to be happy. Your spouse is not going to meet your every need. It's not going to happen. It's designed purposely for it not to happen, so that you learn to love them as Christ loves you. So it's purposely designed for that. And going back to the thing where I was making a distinction between righteousness and holiness, where God is designing it that way. I thought I was a patient person. I thought I was gracious. None of those things. And even talking about communication, like, that's still a big issue. Like, my wife told me she was going to be home at 7 o'clock. I hope she's home now. I don't know. But just stuff like that, where it's just like, those are always issues and things that you have to work through. And so you have to have, and that's why we started with understanding marriage, because the stuff that we just assume already, most people are not assuming how we are viewing marriage. And so it was important to talk about, hey, when we're talking about this idea of relationships, we've got to go talk about marriage, because for us, that's the purpose. And if you're not operating in that, and that's what I was saying, it would be such a slap in the face for somebody who's not a Christian, because essentially we're saying, you're doing it wrong. And it's almost that exclusivity argument, where it's like, you tell me I'm doing it wrong, but yet my marriage looks more successful than others. Because like I said, if you have the statistics within the church, I'm pretty sure the divorce rate is just the same, if not higher, than those outside of the church. But yet we are the ones who claim we got the premium on what the marriage is, but yet we don't reflect that.
I want to speak to that too. I think one of the issues that I kind of see from the church is people often think they've arrived in their marriage.
Yeah.
I see so many people flying, giving seminars on here's how a great marriage is supposed to be. And it's like, is that really, you spending so much time talking about your marriage, are you actually walking out your marriage?
Right.
And I'm like, I doubt that sometimes when I'm listening to these people. And it's like, hey, you getting up there and you're saying these things, but if people were actually critiquing that, you know, can we really see that being walked out? And I think that's where that perfection comes from, because here it is, people giving you this standard and they saying, hey, me and my wife been married for this many years, and it's almost like they become the rule when you're not the rule. You know, God's word is the rule, and we know that you have your shortcomings. And it's like, be humble about, hey, there are still some pitfalls that we have, and have that teachable spirit. I think you should always be learning, even in relationships. Right. You should never feel like you have arrived or you come to this point where you don't need to hear something from somebody else. I think that's something that's key in a relationship, that you should always be willing to learn. How can I grow? How can I mature in this relationship?
And it's definitely been a great conversation. I do want to touch on one last thing before we wrap up. So full disclosure, this is pre-recorded. This isn't going to come out till April. And so we're in January right now. And if anybody knows what's been going on the past couple of days, your timelines, everything has been flooded with this surviving R. Kelly thing. And it's apropos because we're talking about relationships, and we see a great example of unhealthy and abusive relationship. And I've listened to people and they've had their takes on it, and you know, everybody's entitled to their own opinions and whatnot. One of the things that I've taken away is I have no problem with us, you know, castigating R. Kelly. What he did was wrong. There's no justification for anything that he has done. But I listened to other podcasts myself, and I couldn't help but when I was listening to these men talk about R. Kelly in such a way that I had to just step back and question it, because essentially, and I don't know if you guys would agree with me, R. Kelly's sin is essentially devaluing women, just treating them as just sexual beings, not valuing them themselves. Yeah. At the end of the day, that's what he's doing. Right. And it manifests itself in that way, where we're just looking at him as a predator and you know, just this pedophile and things of that nature. And I think he's rightly getting vilified by us. But I think that's as far as it goes for so many people, where they make these absolutes because they deem what he's done as wrong. And because of that, I don't know how many people take time to do their own self-examination, where it's how many of us are guilty for not valuing women. It's not just R. Kelly. Right. You know, R. Kelly is just the one who's done it to the extreme. Right. But we as sinners are looking at another sinner in disgust. How must God look at us? So again, I'm not saying we should deflect anything from R. Kelly, but we should cause us to think, hey, you know, let me do some self-examination on myself. Right. You talking about wandering eyes. How often do I have to catch myself doing these things? How many times I got to repent? You know, like I said, we've got these phones. We got access to unlimited things where, you know, it is so readily available for us, and how easy it is for us to just go and devalue women. But yet we'll sit up in here, the same guys who have no problem with fornication, have no problem going to a strip club, have no problem with cheating, but yet going to turn around and, you know, castigate R. Kelly when it's like, well, let's do some self-examination yourself. Yes. And I didn't know if you guys had any thoughts on that. I know you said you didn't see it, but I'm sure it's been flooding social media. Right. And again, this is not like a current events podcast, but because we're talking about relationships, we can see, you know, the extreme of an abusive relationship, and hopefully it makes us value our own relationships that we have with people.
I think it's tough. We come from a culture where we do devalue women and objectify women, and I think you can see that even throughout commercials and everything else. And it's like, because you in that culture, sometimes you don't catch how you follow that standard. you don't often see that because it becomes the norm. You don't see anything wrong with it until you have that mirror to expose, like, hey, this is wrong to objectify. Hey, this is wrong to devalue. That's why you got so many movements of people trying to rise up and to do things because they see that oppression or they see being wrongly treated or abused. And I think, like you said, is yes, we know those things are wrong, but we have to look at ourselves and say, you know what, hey, my name is Jeremy Thomas and I'm guilty of objectifying women or devaluing in a certain way. And yes, what he's doing is wrong, and I think we need to come together as men and be able to lift up our sisters and help them to know what their identity is and what their true value is.
And I would say for me, I would agree wholeheartedly with what Jeremy was saying. And I think that goes back to the families. Mm-hmm. You know, there should be some responsibility on them as well.
Yeah.
You know, like I was saying, with not having a male figure in the picture, I would imagine some of those cases there wasn't a male figure there, because I have seen it, and I was talking to my brother about this, but I couldn't understand how you've got these 14, 15, 16-year-old girls being away from their families for like 2 weeks at a time, or longer, to be with R. Kelly. You know, if you're a parent, aren't you calling 911 or somebody to make sure your kid is okay, or to bring your kid back home? So I think as a society, you know, we're seeing people who have these kind of predatory dispositions or positions of power, if you will, that can mess up women and their views on relationships. So I think that, like Jeremy was saying, we as men, we need to rise up and do a self-reflection or self-check to say, hey, you know, listen, we are messed up too, you know. We may not have done what R. Kelly's done, but our sin is just the same as his, right? At some point or another, we've either looked or said something out of the way or done something in our past, perhaps, that has, you know, something that we're not proud of. So as a society, I think we can all do better, men especially.
Yeah, and like I said, I hate talking current events because, like I said, this is going to come out to April, and after you talk about current events, like, I hate to say this, but when this does come out in April, I wonder how many people are going to be talking about R. Kelly. So right. It's the topic right now this week, right. But next week, we've already forgotten about it. And so that was the point that I'm making, that we're like throwing stones at R. Kelly when it's like, are we going to take some time to do some self-examination? And hopefully, because months have passed, this will be received more, be easier to digest. Right. Because right now it's just like, F R. Kelly, you know, it's just like, ain't nobody trying to hear that. But for me, when I was listening to the podcast, it just was disheartening because we set these absolutes, but yet we live in this world of so much subjectivity, where it's like you're making law when you become the lawmaker. And it's like, you're not the lawmaker, because the extreme isn't pedophilia. Like I said, we starting at fornication. Like, just that, where people, you're bugging, that's not a big deal. But what's your standard of righteousness? If your standard of righteousness is R. Kelly, yeah, I'm better than R. Kelly. I'm much better than R. Kelly. But R. Kelly ain't your standard. You know, and so I thought it was good timing just to talk about it because of the topic that we were in. The name of the podcast is You're Doing It Wrong, and wanting to be open and honest, where it's easy. He's an easy target to beat up on. Yeah. But so am I, bro. If you knew what I was thinking, if you knew what I did, you would be saying the same things about me. And how many of us gonna be real and be like, bro, I don't value women. You know, my sin ain't the same as him, or to the extent, I should say, but I've devalued women. You know, and like I said, even married, just not valuing my wife. You know, just having to do a self-examination of myself. And that was the point of the podcast, not to just highlight the things that we're doing wrong, but to highlight them for growth and maturity. And if we can't even recognize that, how are we going to grow and mature from it? So this R. Kelly is just causing me to just do my own self-evaluation. And how have I devalued women? How can I not do that? And especially as someone who has a daughter, you know, wanting to set an example for her. And so, like I said, it's been a great podcast.